the County Planning Commission, we're also the Board of Adjustment. So I'm going to call to order this regular meeting of the Minnehaha County Board of Adjustments, and we'll begin with a few introductory comments. As stated before, as a courtesy to everyone, please make sure that you've got your cell phones turned on. The Commission, as I said, will first meet as the Board of Adjustment to consider item 1, the approval of minutes for the January 26th meeting, and item 2, which is a request for a variance. After item 2, the board will reconvene as the Planning Commission. Action taken on a variance may be appealed to the circuit court in a manner and form as provided by the statutes of the state of South Dakota. At this time, I call to order the meeting of the Board of Adjustments. And item number 1 is the approval of minutes, followed by item 2, which is a staff report, and that is Mike. No, that's petitioner, excuse me. What am I, Scott, you're doing that.
No, I'm not. Kevin's doing it, but we need a motion on the minutes.
Oh, you gotta do that first? Okay. Have a motion on the minutes?
Make it happen.
Second.
Motion and a second to make it happen, which I believe is approval. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Same sign. Going against it, motion carries. Minutes are approved. Now we'll move on to item number 2. And Kevin's gonna do it.
Kevin Hookman, Planning Department. So this variance request, variance number 15-1, to exceed the sign area and height on this property for Timothy signs, or Timothy trailers. Last month it was set to be heard and it was deferred based on the applicant's request. Nobody was present at the meeting for either for or against the request. Since that time, the applicant has raised his original request, and we approved that increase in size or height based on the published notice to the public just said an increase in size and height, so it didn't give it a narrow definition of increased size and height for the public notice. So the applicant is requesting a size of 299 square feet, which is 99 square feet more than the allowed in the district. And then the request for the height is now requesting 60 feet. The original request is 40. Let's see if we got some pictures here. So, and the sign will look something like that, and there's several variations that he has presented to us, but this is what he presented to us. So, on January 13th, staff visited the site and took several pictures. I'll go over the PowerPoint a little bit first before I go to that. So the proposed site is marked here on this map. There's already a concrete footing there in place for a sign next to the now getting closer to finished building on the site along the interstate. The other sign along the road is going to be a monument style sign. There's a sign view. This is the rendering of what the sign may look like from standing on the north side of the property. This is one of my pictures this is standing at the interstate exit. As you get off the Crooks Runner exit, I'm looking kind of northwest towards this. And you can see the building being constructed in the background, and the size of that semi could maybe give you a little bit of height reference there of what is 30-foot sign would be about twice as tall as that semi, because you are allowed a 30-foot sign in this district, and he's requesting 60 feet. And there's the post, the site foundation. You can see some trees there. One of the main concerns for the applicant is trees blocking the view of the sign. There are several trees in the right-of-way, so it is state property, and he is unable to clear them out of the way. And although they may be short and leafless now, there is one very tall tree, and these are expected to grow taller. And that was one of his main concerns, is that the site 30 feet is not going to give them enough height to clear these signs, these trees. For example, this was taken from the overpass on the mile to the north, and this is kind of hard to see where you're at, so I zoomed it in a little bit. Very little, kind of on the left side of that billboard there, a little ways, you'll see this tiny little sign, and it's going to go right behind that big tree is kind of the proposed location. The other reasons for the request would be that from the south side on the interstate, the petitioner believes that to be able to see the sign and get off the interstate safely, you'll be able to have that sign taller to see over that overpass, as would be his request. And I'm sure he'll talk a little bit more about that. Some notes to keep in mind. In this zoning district, as I mentioned, the sign is allowed to be 30 feet tall and 200 square feet. His request is 299 square feet large, which is even bigger than what is allowed for a billboard in that zoning district, an off-premise sign. And also in the recent past, in the last summer, a similar request was made at the Baltic exit, and that was denied as well, based on the site conditions not being enough of or not being a hardship. Staff recommends denial of this variance, variance number 15-1, to increase this height of the on-premise sign 30 feet to 60 feet, and to increase the maximum size from 200 feet to 299 feet. If you have any questions, I can answer them now.
Question, Kevin. You made reference to a billboard. Do you know the dimensions of a billboard, what the standard dimensions are?
What is a standard dimension of billboard? Something like 12 by 24 or something like that.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So isn't that a billboard there on the right side of the photo?
Looks like it.
Yes,
Is it gonna be
there are
bigger
a
than
couple
that?
billboards there.
Their sign is proposed to be larger than that?
Yes. It wouldn't be by a huge amount, but it would be a lot larger than a regular sign for an on-premise sign. This is taken quite a ways from the destination, about a mile or 3/4 of a mile from that site. So.
Yes, sir.
So the trees that are currently growing in the highway right-of-way, are they on the fence line? Is that the story, or are they down in the ditch? Or
No, they're pretty close to the fence line, and they're planted staggered and even rows, so they were planted there.
Okay.
As you can see, there's kind of a cutback. I'll go back to the map. There's kind of a cutback in the interstate there where there's a hill, so he's kind of sitting up on the hill, or there's a, so they cut out that hill for that ditch or that right of way.
Because I know
And
that
the
they don't
trees
like
are kind of
trees
in that right of way triangle
where you
there.
can crash into them.
Yes, sir.
So when I drove by there and looked at it, it looked like those trees are volunteer trees in the fence line. Has anybody spoken with the DOT to determine if they actually planted these, or if there'd be the possibility of just going in there and cutting them down and trimming that up?
It looked like there are some volunteer trees, but it also, from what I've seen, it does look like there are planted trees there
Okay.
as well. So there are both.
Has anybody talked to the state DOT?
I
that
guess
you're
I
aware of?
haven't. I don't know
Okay.
if the applicant has or not.
And these signs, would a billboard need to comply with the similar regulations of what we're looking at here, Kevin? If this was a discussion of adding a billboard there, say for a hotel or something?
So if he wanted to add a billboard there for a hotel, he'd have to comply with a distance from the nearest billboard, the nearest off-premise sign. I think it's 500 feet. And then there are height restrictions and size restrictions, and that size is 288 square feet for the billboard. For an
Okay.
off-premise sign.
And aren't virtually all of the billboard signs already built that are along the interstate?
I think there are, you have to be in an industrial district, and we don't let them build in the cornfield anymore. Yeah, and I think most of them are. I think there may be a few places that you can find that some holes in there that you can find.
Is there commercial zoning in this development at all? So,
It's primarily light industrial.
Primarily right along the highway, I think it's commercial, right down by the exit there.
any other questions for Kevin? Thank you. Is the applicant here, and would you like to come forward, state your name and address, and tell us about your project?
Good afternoon or good evening to the board. My name is Aaron Dinslage, and the Director of Customer Support or Operations Director for Aftermarket Parts and Service. I'm excited to announce here in just a few short weeks we will be completing our building in Minnehaha County and opening for business. This will be our 7th of these type of facilities that we have going up, but it's definitely very important that we get off to the right start here in the Sioux Falls area. And that's what brings us here tonight, to really discuss what we feel is a hardship around the visibility of where our building's going to be. As you look off to the, back up a step, I'll tell you a little bit about Tinty. We manufacture, we design, manufacture, sell, and then also repair the trailers. And our primary customer base is going to be the local and regional customers around here. As you take a look at where we're located, the hardship that we really do see is the visibility, northbound and southbound. Primarily when heading north, there's an overpass sign there, or an overpass there, and to be able to really get off and exit for our customers is going to be nearly impossible unless we have that height of the sign for our customers to know where it is. The hard part with that is we've got to go 8 miles up to Baltic and 8 miles back. For our customers that are trying to get to our facility, that's a considerable amount of time as well as fuel costs for a rig. So that I think the danger we run there is that our customers head up to Fargo to the next authorized dealer. Moving southbound, coming from the north, as you can see, I think there are a couple pictures here, and we have a presentation here that will show it as well. There's a large tree directly in the line of sight, and right now there are obviously no leaves on the tree. But as spring and summer approach, it's right directly in the line of sight of where our sign would be. We did look at maneuvering our sign around at different angles, but where we came up with it was the best option. And by the time our customer would see the sign where we're at and be able to exit would, I feel, make it somewhat dangerous at that point to make it a pretty tight exit, a quick exit. We did prepare a short presentation here with some pictures. Tom's going through it. What you'll see on this photo here would be a tree that's off in the distance. It's more of a reference point that you can see. And we've got that gauged at about 65 foot tall. This would be driving north roughly, I would guess, probably, 2 miles? Or about 2 miles back, and the 3 photos we have, one is closer and then gets a little bit closer. As you can see there, it's got the point of reference, that 65-foot tree. Next one here. This would be a very similar picture of what was shown earlier, right up on top of the exit on the deal there.
This would be where
So,
the 4 pictures were taken from.
yeah, so this is where the 4 pictures were taken from. So as you can see, heading north, in order for our customers to get off there and to exit, it's got to be visible from quite a distance. And I think that's why, as we're looking at this, I know we're asking for a lot. As I think about it, what's most important to us would be the height, to make sure that we're visible to our customers and they can exit. So we're not Our business isn't necessarily a destination business. We do a significant amount of parts business out of there as well, so we consider it a retail facility as well. A good portion of our business comes from retail sales and customers pulling in on a whim, or when they see the sign, they know they need something and they would drop it and get it. So that's why this is ultimately very important to us. Got a couple more photos here. Up there. This would be north looking to the south, and as you can see the larger tree there, our sign would be directly behind that for most of the drive until you actually get up close and right about where the exit would be. So that's really why the height is truly important to us, is to get over that tree so our customers can make the exit safely.
Pardon me, is that tree on the west side of the road then, or?
Correct. And it's not on our property, it's also on the state property line there, so. And this one also shows the 3 locations where the photos were taken from in there. So as you can see, we're kind of between a rock and a hard spot where our location is relative to the exits, and that's why this is really important for us. In one direction, our customer would have to go a 16-mile round trip to get back to us. Certainly not easy with the big rig. What we have here is just a few photos of displays that we're looking at. Obviously, you can see the top sign is a large Tempe sign with a digital display underneath. What you'll see here in the first couple of photos would be the request for a 60-foot tall sign with 299 square foot. And we have a picture of it trimmed down to the bottom sign going from 6 foot to 5 foot by 16 foot 6 inches. This would be another option we looked at, would be 7 foot by 22 and a 6 foot display underneath, and then also the second one, a 5 foot display underneath.
How wide is the display sign? It's
I'm sorry?
5 foot, the display sign is 5 foot?
On one of the options, yes.
And then how wide is it?
16 foot 6 inches, I believe, so. Yeah, good back one there. Yeah, down the bottom right corner, it's got the dimensions. Might be tough to see there.
See that.
6 by 16, 6, yeah.
Yeah.
So the 5 foot one was how big?
16 foot 6 wide as well, 5 foot tall on the digital sign below. There's one more. Yeah, I understand the county does have a provision that does allow for 60 foot on properties that are adjacent to an overpass. We've got the Clark sign here, which would be up next on that Baltic exit. I believe they're roughly around the 60 foot mark. Obviously with the visibility piece that they're after, we're after the same thing. We do happen to be just about a block and a half, 2 blocks off of that adjacent property, which was already taken, so obviously we couldn't purchase it. And then this sign here was from the Flying J, and we just wanted to make a simple point. This is not what we're after, is something this large, this big, and that busy. We're after a large Tempe sign that our customers can see from a pretty good distance away, enough to make the exit, and a digital sign below.
Okay, anything else?
That's all I've got.
Any questions?
I'm open for any questions.
All right, Commissioner. Bill?
Aaron, my understanding, you would put your sign on the west side of the road on your property?
Correct.
Right, so it'd be on the west side of the road. And how long have you had the property?
Purchased the property, I believe, back in March or April. Does that sound about right?
Okay.
Yeah.
so not quite a year.
Yep.
And then there is an existing sign there right now along the road right away, relatively small. It says Timty, I believe.
There is a,
About the size of a sheet of plywood. It's not very large.
Oh.
Is that
That's just a
correct?
construction sign?
yeah, we.
It does say
currently,
Timty on it.
Right off Cottonwood, we've got an office that we rent from one of the neighbors.
Okay.
And that's a sales office about a quarter the size of this room that two guys operate out of, so. That's what is there now, just a 5-foot sign that's in the ground.
And if you were to move the sign farther south, you would have to move it off your property and onto someone else's property to negotiate that.
Correct. We're about as far south as we can get on our property line. Where
Okay,
we're,
with
where
your
we're
proposal.
proposing, we're putting it down.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions for the applicant? Congratulations, I understand this is, what did you say, your 7th site?
Seventh factory direct location, yes.
So clearly you've got some experience there. Are you indicating, implying that a significant portion of your business is spur of the moment driving down the highway as opposed to maybe calling in advance and understanding what exit to take or anything? So they're just driving down and they see the Tempty sign and they turn on?
I wouldn't lead you to believe it's like a convenience store, but it is a significant part of our business, yes. South Dakota is our 7th largest grain hopper state in the country. So there's a significant amount of traffic, and for the guys that are over the road and need the parts and are, local farmers and regional commercial operators.
Is that like more than 50% of your sales or less than 50%?
Depends on the location, but, probably in that ballpark,
You've done
yes.
any tracking on source of customers or marketing analysis?
Not for the Sioux Falls location, but I can speak to our other 6 locations, yes.
And when you did your site selection work, were you on the team?
I was.
And were you aware of the sign requirements, and did you consider a commercial, you say you've got a sales office, commercial setting that might be easier to access as opposed to one that has these siting concerns?
Not sure I understand the question.
Well, there are, you've indicated that it's difficult to get off the interstate by the time you see the sign, but there maybe were other locations. Did you consider other locations that might be more convenient for your spur of the moment?
We did consider a couple other locations, but we felt this was the best one for our operation. Not only, right now we do have the sales office. What we're building now is a full service location, service bays, parts sales, as well as a sales office built into it. There were 3 or 4 other sites we did consider. As far as the sign variance, I don't believe we learned that until after the purchase, that, there was gonna be some restrictions there that would potentially hinder our operation. And until we really got on site and picked out where the sign location would be, with the tree in the way, and then, having to know the distance coming from south and north, that was gonna be an issue.
One of the issues, I guess, that we have, of course, is that for other folks who we've denied this larger sign or whatever, that then they could accuse us of having, disparate treatment at random or whatever. What about having a sign south of the interchange to tell people northbound that it was coming up ahead, and then moving this sign to the northern corner of your property so that people coming south would have as much time as possible to brake and make the exit?
So we are looking at other options in terms of billboards. If we go to the south of our property for about the next 2 to 3 miles, there isn't, or at least down to past the 90 interchange, there isn't an opportunity for a billboard in that area. There are currently none right now, as we look around. As far as moving the sign that we're proposing now further to the north, again, that tree is what gets in the way. We could move it up to the far north edge of our property line, and that tree would still be blocking it from coming from the north. That's why we put it all the way down on the south corner so that we'd be able to see it better. Does that answer your question?
Somewhat, yeah. I'm sorry, I have not been out there to look at it lately.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate your time.
Are there people in the audience that would like to come forward and speak to this item? Commissioners?
I'll start the conversation, but I definitely support the staff's position, and as you mentioned, Commissioner Barth, about precedence. It's very important in these deals. We didn't pick the site, and all of a sudden you're gonna have a 60-foot sign up in the air where there are none. And if they want one, it needs to be in the site where it's located, not out here. Now, definitely supported the denial. It's always interesting how we get these things. We didn't build the overpass that you can't see from the south. It's there, it's part of the landscape. Just like when we did the one in Baltic, oh, we can't see that sign, we can't see that sign. Guess what? They put up the required sign, and I can see it from the bottom of the hill and the north of the overpass. So I think we need to stick with our ordinances because it does set precedence when you start varying.
Our ordinance does accommodate advertising signs. This is a location sign that's gotten large. The distinction being is and I have known billboards in West River, I promote which exit to take to get to my location, and once you get to the location, I have a sign that's within the sign ordinance requirements. I think what and I've dealt with these sign things for the many years I've been on this commission and previously on the city, is you oftentimes we're being asked to overcome a site deficiency, which by the way contributes maybe to a lower acquisition cost by giving something that the ordinance normally wouldn't contemplate. And there's billboards that we could advertise that would say take this exit, and then the smaller sign would accommodate it, or you put a sales office in a more accommodating site for less minute drivers. That's my opinion. Besides from everything else stated in terms of precedence and all of those things.
Well, if I may, I remember another case we had, I think it was the I-90 Speedway, where they had a sign on 2 telephone poles, and they started nailing more signs below that for Coca-Cola or whatever. We made them take it down, those additional signs.
I'll move for denial.
Motion to deny, is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I think that based on the precedent and based on the enforcement issues that we've had, I think that we should deny it, but at the same time, I would urge us to suggest that the applicant look at taking down the trees that are causing problems. Maybe could seed the ditch with some beavers or something.
Well, that one tree is storm damaged.
Anyway, I just think that there are some alternatives that I regret that we don't have more time to check with the DOT about the ownership of that tree, because I don't think they like those. It's one thing if they plant them as a snow fence, but it's another thing that looks pretty volunteerish to me. Who knows what falls in the night? But anyway, so I think we
As a Democrat, doesn't that contribute to our carbon footprint?
not if we bury it.
Oh, I see. Had to ask. So we have a motion and a second to deny. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion to deny is passed.